This is the 100X podcast, and for the very first time, we are joined by Off the Grid. I'm really excited about this conversation. We've got Theodore, their Web3 director, joining us. If you've somehow been in like a coma for the last 6 months and you don't know what the heck Off the Grid is, these guys are building an insane, genuinely fun Battle Royale / Extraction Royale that just won Game of the Year through the Game Awards. You guys are the first blockchain integrated game that is on console. I've played it on my Xbox. That's pretty crazy. And you guys are successfully onboarding millions of wallets that people probably don't even know they're interacting with the blockchain. We've theorized about this, about gaming being able to achieve this idea, the onboarding of millions of people. And you guys are not just theorizing, you're doing it. So it is a privilege and an honor to have you guys on. I'm excited to get into it with the team that is genuinely 100Xing the Web3 gaming space. Thank you, Theo. I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. You guys just went into the biggest update since launch, like yesterday, maybe a couple days ago. I tried it out, the aim assist. Personally, I'm a controller player. The aim assist feels so good right now. I can actually play not on mouse and keyboard. I'm excited. I'm not as bad as I was a week ago now because of it. Tell me everything that you guys just pushed out in that update.
Of course, it was actually the biggest update we've ever pushed out, and it included a full rework of our scope system. It included a full rework of our movement system. We now have all the scopes, including the 3x scopes, going into first-person view. We call it true FPV. And we have, obviously, the aim assist. We have our performance increase across the board. We added about 10 frames per second across the board everywhere, but especially on PlayStation and Xbox, it was even more than that. We added performance mode, which of course, in a very, very tasteful way, reduces visual fidelity in order to increase performance. And we went and turned it on by default for Xbox Series S, which of course is struggling a little bit from a perspective of rendering really high fidelity graphics. So that's now the only option that Xbox Series S has. And a number of quality of life updates. People, for example, noticed very recently it was 9 pages of updates and patch notes rather. At the end, they just said and hundreds of other updates. One little one that people absolutely love and are in love with is now if you have a backpack on, for example, that is better than the one that's on the ground, it will actually not let you swap it, and it will say you already have the best of that specific item on you. So a ton of quality of life upgrades like that. Adjustments to the weapons, adjustments to some of the cyber limbs. People definitely, for the most part, are enjoying it. Several bugs, of course, found their way into it because the upgrade was so massive. And so, in a very, very rushed and in emergency fashion, we are releasing patches. The first one came out today that addressed a bunch of concerns and more coming. But basically, we have an incredibly responsive team that monitors our Discord practically 24/7 and immediately jumps on any issues that do arise. Obviously, to remind everyone, right, we are in early access, and we're in early access only for a little bit over 2 months. So there's definitely still going to be issues, but they're addressed very, very rapidly by currently a team of over 380 full-time employees.
Before we dig into everything this episode has to offer, we want to highlight the awesome partners who sponsor this podcast and make it possible for us to work full-time on 100X. They're legends, and we appreciate them for supporting us. Let me tell you about our friends at Games.gg. And when I say friends, I really do mean that they are friends of 100X. Their CEO, Omar, was one of my first introductions to Web3 gaming, and we're OG holders of their Gamers Lobby collection. We love these guys. They're essentially the super app of Web3 gaming. One of the cool things they've cooked up is a gaming quest system. You complete free quests for cool games, anything from retweeting a post to beating a mission in a new game, and then you get rewards, tokens, skins, whitelist access, all kinds of things. Go explore everything awesome they've crafted just for you at Games.gg right now. Phenomenal, man. Yeah, I will say that it wasn't just the aim assist felt better. It felt usable. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the way it's inverted. I just felt like I was crazy when I would try to use the jetpack too on controller. I just crashed into the ground every time. Mouse and keyboard, I was totally fine. But now it like feels really, really smooth on controller. And I think that's going to enhance the experience a lot. I don't play it on the Xbox. I downloaded it just to check it out. But I think that's going to enhance the experience a lot for controller players, which that's a huge portion of people that play shooters are controller players.
It's actually the majority. The majority of our gamers are on console, right? So it's absolutely important to make sure that they also have a good experience. We love our PC community, but we must make sure that this is also running very well on console. And so it's a huge focus of ours to make sure that it runs really well on both platforms.
Cool. Awesome, man. I love it. I love that you guys are cooking. Why don't you give me, for maybe people that, if this is somehow their first time listening to you guys, I think maybe the broader crypto side, maybe this is one of the first conversations they've heard about you guys if they're not in gaming. Why don't you give me the general thesis of like, hey, why did Off the Grid, you're the Web3 director, why did Off the Grid decide that Web3 blockchain is the place to build this game? Why is this enhancing the gaming experience? Why does it benefit the blockchain experience? Like, why the merger of these two worlds for you guys specifically?
Sure. Well, I'll start with a quote from Shroud, a very famous, world famous battle royale and shooter streamer that has nothing to do with Web3. And our game Off the Grid was his first Web3 kind of gaming experience. And he phrased it very, very eloquently, and it's an awesome soundbite. It's how I get it now. Why spend millions of dollars building a Steam marketplace when you simply can use blockchain? So I'll start with that quote, but I'll go further and I'll say that from the very, very early beginnings of Gonzilla Games, the studio behind Off the Grid, the goal that the founders had was to ensure some very, very basic things that they felt currently in Web 2 were done completely wrong. And one of the most basic things hinges on gamers should own their own assets. And there is no easier way to facilitate that than, of course, through blockchain technology. Now, of course, you could use a database and you could keep it all in-house and you could toss it all into this black box that nobody has any insight to or can't verify anything on. Or in the true spirit of what Gonzilla stands for, i.e. game developers building for gamers or gamers building for gamers, we wanted it to be completely transparent, completely trackable, and completely exposed to the public. So when we say that there's only 1,000 items of this, people can actually verify our claims and not have to rely on a corporation that has a server somewhere that nobody has access to and they can't verify such claims. That's one. Two, the ability to, of course, have very specific serial numbers is very, very important. As another streamer said that, oh, this is just like serialized Magic the Gathering cards that are verifiable and traceable and trackable. So it is, in traditional collectibles, a very known fact that, the number one of something, the number one, released Ferrari in 1976 of this specific edition is, of course, worth more than number 249. So the ability to say, well, this is the first minted skin, this is number two, number three, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And someone having number one possibly, or in many cases, would reflect that they've worked the hardest to work through a battle pass, to play and acquire enough XP to be able to claim that, is actually a fairly significant bragging right. And it stands for something important, right? They were able to first reach that specific level and claim that specific skin or item. So from the ground up, right, we wanted to make it about that. I have a little anecdotal story out of my own life. And one of the many, many, many things that attracted me to Gonzilla when I joined 3 years ago, I have two older boys that played Fortnite very extensively. We would play Fortnite together. And inevitably, after a couple of years, they stopped playing Fortnite. They moved on to other games. But in the meantime, they had spent several thousands of dollars each, two boys, from their Christmas money and their own summer jobs and their birthday money on skins. So they stopped playing and they came to me and they said, so Dad, so how do I sell this? How do I get my money back? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not how the industry works. They're like, what do you mean? Like, I own these items. I paid for them. I bought them. So we talked about what a EULA is and what corporations do and don't do and what asset ownership actually really means. But it's crazy from my perspective that we are in the 2000s, let alone, 2024 in this case, and people still cannot truly own their own in-game assets. Whether they move on to another game or what a much simpler use case, they just simply want their squad mate, their friend, to try out their skin. So in Fortnite, of course, and other games, right? In Fortnite specifically in Season 2, the end of the Battle Pass was the Black Knight. And it was really difficult to get. Like, you had to do a crazy amount of stuff to get that. And my kids got it. And they were so proud of that. And they simply wanted their friend that was in their squad to try it out. Can't do that. Like, why not? Like, if you have a skateboard or whatever, right? Like, here, buddy, you try it out and I'll try yours. Like, the most normal kind of human interaction is prevented and prohibited because a corporation says that we shouldn't do it. So all of these things and more were literally at the core of what the team decided is not done correctly in Web2 gaming, and was the reason for choosing blockchain technology to solve these problems, as well as a myriad of other problems.
Yeah, man, I love it. I think 2 points on that. One is specifically looking at like the serialized stuff, being able to collect. I straight up bought your red team, blue team skins, not even because I planned on running them all the time, but because I genuinely think those could become collector's items. I
For
bought them the
sure.
same way that I would buy like a trading card, thinking it could become a collector's item. That was it for me.
Yeah.
I might run them sometimes, but it really was like, hey, man, I could see if you guys continue growing at the rate you're growing at, people are going to want these. Now I've got something that people want. That's awesome. I can't do that in Fortnite. And I have like hundreds of skins in Fortnite that are
Yep.
just stuck in my account.
Yep.
And I think the second question I have on that, you guys are pretty solid, I would say, at like quality of skins. This is not actually, you know what? It is a huge critique. It's a critique to Web3 gaming. I think a lot of games don't have great skins. We pitch this idea of like, look, you can own your skins, but if your skins are like 10% as likable as the mainstream games, I don't really care about owning it because your skins suck. But your guys' skins, off the grid skins, I think you guys are probably leading the pack with the best skin design in the space right now. I'll say that, for my opinion. Maybe that's just my perspective. I like it.
Thank you.
I saw a tweet that you guys put out the other day about like, hey, if you could see any skin introduced into the world, what would you want it to be? What's your guys' stance on like other IPs being integrated into Off the Grid's world as far as skins go?
Well, you obviously saw that we had the ninja skin in October, right? That's somebody else's IP. Obviously, you saw the Save Democracy pack, the red and the blue skin, which of course we had a lot of fun with.
That was so good. That was my favorite announcement I've seen in a while in crypto.
For sure. People couldn't believe that we actually did it. People literally, when they were posting, some people would respond, no, that's impossible. And then they would go there and see. It was a really, really good, I think, very, very well executed skin campaign. And you're right. We spent an incredible amount of time planning these out, designing them, implementing them. One of the reasons why the current December content pack, slipped a little bit is because we just wanted to make sure it's absolutely of the highest quality. It's dropping on Friday the 13th. I know this show is of course coming.
So as soon as the show ends, I'm gonna go grab it.
That's right. It's gonna be next level, of course. In this case, holiday themed. But of course, yeah, we are talking to a number of different brands and IPs, and we have our own really kind of neat ideas and more parody coming in the future as well, for sure. It's a big kind of, like, I would say, kind of stamp of ours that really know what the game is doing in the
I feel like everyone's been too scared to do that kind of stuff, and I appreciate it.
They're just too scared, but it's so focused on the game itself, and that's another thing I really appreciate about our game. We really go super deep into story and lore. All these things kind of went by the wayside, and without naming names, right? So many Web 2 games are coming out with just a copy of a copy of a copy. Maybe there's 10 more weapons coming out. Maybe there's 20 more skins coming out. Maybe the map changes a little bit. But there's really, like, why am I on this island, or why am I in this universe, and what am I really doing? And oh, don't worry about it. Just go shoot some people, or go just run around and jump, whatever the gameplay is. And I'm not judging, but I personally love immersive experiences. One of my favorite games that came out recently was Elden Ring. I was blown away. Well, first of all, Miyazaki is already one of my favorite filmmakers. And once I saw this, I'm like, hold on, I think this looks very familiar, especially the house that walks around on 4 legs and everything. I was like, oh, of course, it's Miyazaki. That immersive world that had such a rich story behind every single element. And then the story kind of kept unfolding. I love that stuff. And I think a lot of that has gotten lost over the last couple of decades of gaming. And Gunzilla is kind of bringing that back, and specifically in the Battle Royale genre. You might have seen the short films that Neil Blomkamp, our co-founder, produced. He obviously is the guy behind District 9, Chappie, Elysium with Matt Damon, and last year he did the movie Gran Turismo for Orlando Bloom. So absolutely amazing storyteller, and sci-fi storyteller specifically. So to see these environments, to see the richness of the story is just a really, really feel-good kind of like aspect of the game that I personally really love, and I think it resonates very well with folks. So coming back full circle, we're bringing that same level of quality and storytelling and lore into every single kind of content pack that we drop, into everything that continues happening from that point onward. And you'll see actually some of that in the short film that accompanies the December skin, right? How it kind of goes from story to story, and there's a whole like larger universe and larger story that will continue unraveling from that.
I like that you said short film. Now I know we got something to look forward to here very shortly to be able to watch.
A couple hours probably at the most. Yeah.
Let's go.
There we go. I do want to ask you a question, just because the way that you guys move, the way that you guys handle announcements, the way that you guys handle everything behind the scenes and what you guys show to the community and to the world. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that you guys are very Web 2 minded. You guys are very professional in the way you guys approach the game and how you guys handle even the Web 3 aspects. I think for a lot of people, maybe a little unorthodox, because we do see like teams take it very degen, like, oh, hey, we're going to go like full send on the Web 3 stuff and maybe lack a little bit in terms of the game quality and the game aspect itself. How do you guys find that balance between, hey, we're building a super awesome game that we want gamers to just genuinely love outside of just crypto and all the blockchain stuff, but also, hey, you guys do have a Web3 audience. Some of your biggest supporters are Web3 natives. How do you find that balance between your Web2 audience and your Web3 audience, either from where you guys are at now and moving forward?
Well, I would say that number one, we look at it all as one audience, right? Let's start with that. Like, I'm not a big fan of all these labels, Web 2, Web 3, Web 55, whatever it might be. Ultimately, for us, the most important thing is that it's all about the user experience. It's all about the gamer. Whether that's a person that's Web 2 native, whether that's a person that's Web 3 native, doesn't really matter to us. Like, we appreciate them both equally. Now, some folks might have more experience with certain technologies. It might make it easier for them to do certain things. Some folks might not have that same experience. But to us, ultimately, the technology should move out of the way and provide just for a good experience. Ultimately, people will, in the future, I guarantee you, demand that any kind of technology, including blockchain technology, works the same that the iPhone works. You open an app, you get your entertainment, you get your tasks done, you close the app, you move on to your next app. It shouldn't matter what blockchain it is on, what wallet it is, 16-word mnemonic phrases, token swapping, off ramping of fiat. None of that ultimately matters. And that's how we look at it, right? We used the best technology to facilitate a very specific series of experiences. And in this case, for certain experiences, blockchain technology is absolutely the best tool. And we love that we're being embraced, of course, by the Web3 communities, and we love that we're being embraced by the Web2 communities, but we don't really make a huge distinction between them. We just want to make sure that we give our user the best possible experience.
I have a question on that specifically about like not dividing the two audiences, just viewing them as one. I think one of the roadblocks that you guys are obviously aware of that you have to jump over is the fact that one of those audiences, the traditional gamer audience, there's a portion of them that are really anti anything blockchain. I have seen those comments. I have personally shielded your guys' game and Instagram comments and stuff. And I've seen some people say, oh, this looks awesome. And other ones say, well, I see there's an NFT involved, or I see there's blockchains involved. That can't be good. There's still like a negative, I don't know, mindset ingrained because they had a bad experience at some point. How are you guys specifically approaching like winning over the loudest anti-blockchain critics?
Most importantly, and you've seen that with the launch, we made it very, very clear, and we also implemented it in that way, that the blockchain components are completely optional. You never have to directly interact with blockchain components.
Yep.
Yes, a wallet is getting set up for you automatically. Yes, the actual underlying technology to store your in-game assets happens to be NFT technology because it's easier to solve the problems that we're working on solving.
Yeah, exactly.
But you never have to sell them on the marketplace, put them in a wallet, sell them on OpenSea. You don't have to do any of these things. You can simply play the game, use these in-game assets, rest easy knowing that you actually truly own them. And if you so choose, then you can interact with the marketplace or take them out into, learn how to set up a wallet, take them into your own wallet, connect to OpenSea, or do whatever else you might want to do. But you never have to interact with that. And, as a reminder, this is completely free to download. This is completely free to play. It's not gated by any NFTs or anything else, which is obviously a very popular thing that used to happen in 2021 with kind of the first generation of Web3 games. So none of that is in our game. So over time, especially since early access, once people saw and actually experienced for themselves that this is not just marketing speak, but this is actually what we have in the game, that it is completely optional, that you do not have to interact with, that you do not have to set up a wallet, that you do not have to swap any tokens or do anything of that nature, that you simply can enjoy the gaming experience for what it is and enjoy it for free, then people changed the tune for the most part, right? They said, oh, this is actually really cool. Like, why was I worried about it? Like that some of the top streamers said exactly that. They're like, oh, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, man. I saw the Ninja clip and the Tim the Tatman clip, the Shroud clip. That was all awesome. I think Those are guys I used to watch during COVID and whatnot, and seeing them come around to things that they used to like explicitly
Yep.
diss years ago is awesome. And I think you guys have taken all of the benefits and removed the downsides, and that's a huge win. What about like the other question on this Web 2 versus Web 3 experience is, I would say if I asked a crypto gamer, hey, what's the best game in crypto right now? I think 9 out of 10 of them are going to pick the winner of the game of the year. They're going to pick you guys. But then if I were to go look at like Web 2 gaming, it's a lot harder in the traditional shooter genre to break into that world. We look at X Defiant, who it was genuinely fun. I like the Ubisoft IPs. I played a lot of those games, and they couldn't stand on their own feet for a single year before the studio announced they're closing down. How do you guys, I don't know, like how do you go on to not just be a success in Web3 gaming, but in gaming as a shooter?
Well, first of all, let's start with the fact that we are already a success now in Web2 gaming. We obviously are not yet exactly where we would like to be, but we have a very large portion of our audience not even knowing what crypto is and not even knowing what an NFT is, and genuinely enjoying the game. And in our Discord, if you see it in our Discord, you'll see that sometimes people say something about, some blockchain components, and you have a bunch of people going like, what's that? Like, what is this thing that you're talking about? And they're like, oh, you don't know? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I don't care about that stuff. Like, let me just play the game. Let me give the developers feedback about the game and what I would like to see in the game. So it's already happening. Obviously, we haven't even launched the full game yet, right? We're at like 20% roughly of the game. The full battle royale mode is still coming. Ranked play is coming. All sorts of other things are coming. The story modes are coming. So we are at a point where, in early access, of course, we're not going to have 100 million players yet, but that is exactly what we're working towards. And again, the team has prior to this built a very large project in traditional gaming that had almost 150 million gamers. So they know what they're doing, and they'll continue taking this project, with all of its blockchain benefits into the traditional world, while also, of course, fully embracing our wonderful Web3 communities.
I do want to ask you a question. You a couple of questions ago, you mentioned that Off the Grid and Gonzilla wants to use the best technology possible to provide the best experience possible for the gamer. In that choice of using the best technology possible, you guys found your way into creating yourself a layer 1 on Avalanche. I mean, we love Avalanche ourselves. We're Avalanche partners. Why was an Avalanche L1 the best decision for Gonzilla?
Sure. So I'll touch on several points, not just the L1, but the whole ecosystem that we built to basically launch the first ever truly AAA Web3 kind of gaming ecosystem. We chose Avalanche because after extensive testing, this was the only technology that allowed us to create this seamless onboarding experience that we wanted to create. One of the most critical factors for us was to make sure that we use our own token for gas. And while some other chains said that they can facilitate that and do that, when we tested it, Avalanche was the only solution that actually truly was able to do that in a seamless fashion. And after we chose Avalanche, we, of course, were completely blown away with their technical support, with their marketing support, with their approach and how they embraced and supported the projects that came to them. And it's been an absolutely phenomenal partnership now for several years. But to touch on the second subject that I raised in the beginning, it goes far beyond just a blockchain, right? Our Gunzi chain. We built our own wallet, our Gunzi wallet, that's been on iOS and Android for over a year now. We built our own NFT marketplace. We built our own blockchain scanner. We built our own NFT minting engine. We built our own companion app as well. If you haven't tried it yet, the OTG companion app is incredible. It gives you all these stats, all these details, and it's a really cute swipe left, swipe right to match with other gamers' experience. So your little timeline, you get your chat. So a really incredible experience. And all of these tools are built for Off the Grid, of course, but all of them we will allow other web development, game development, any kind of other dApps that might come onto us, allow them to white label these solutions for their products. Of course, mostly games, but I'm sure other products in the future as well. And that's where we will continue, especially after the main Off the Grid launch, to expand into, to build out that AAA Web3 gaming ecosystem.
I really like that. I do have one more question, a little bit now, to a different topic. When it comes to the gamer experience itself, I mean, we saw a lot of people try a blockchain-enabled game for the very first time with Off the Grid, not only on PC but also on consoles. And one of the things that we saw that a lot of people were surprised by was your massive, massive tournament that you just had not that long ago. I think a couple of weeks ago that blew
Yep.
a lot of people away. I mean, I was there the whole day just watching people's perspective, watching Kyra, watching Inhuman, watching some of the streamers that I used to watch back in the day during Warzone tournaments, like Iceman Isaac, who absolutely crushed it in that tournament, Aiden and stuff like that. And a lot of them were like, dude, this is just crazy that this game is solid enough, but that they're also, doing this massive tournament with a pretty big monetary value behind it as well. For people who are maybe going to start getting into Off the Grid and want to participate in those events like that, what could they have to look forward to when it comes to more tournaments, more events, getting involved with Off the Grid and becoming part of the community like that?
Well, I can't speak to too many details around that, but what I can say is that we absolutely have built and are continuing to build Off the Grid as a very kind of tournament-friendly, esports friendly game, and that is going to be a very, very large focus of ours, going forward. We of course have also our Clash for Cash daily tournaments, that we continue fine tuning, but people can win, $3,000 per day, which is quite massive on a daily basis. And we definitely have other larger tournaments planned in the future as well, even though nothing has been announced yet. But yeah, that's definitely a very, very large focus of ours to give a very, very good experience to your casual player, but also to give a very, very good experience to your very competitive player.
How are you going about, just on this point with what you just said, the casual versus the competitive? How are you going about balancing that? Because I mean, that tournament we saw, like the storm camping, I've never seen that in a non-competitive game, and you'll see that where people play one specific meta and it's fine, and then you throw a tournament out there, and all of a sudden the game changes and people do something else you've never seen before. How are you balancing like the hey, people are grinding for money, so they're going to do whatever it takes versus the way that the game's intended to be played?
We of course are, like I said, I'll repeat, right, we're in early access, so there's still a lot of things that we are kind of fine tuning and working on. The specific storm meta, right, has been completely updated now through the update that we launched 2 days ago. The end circle works completely differently now, based on community feedback. We've made a ton of adjustments to that, as well as a ton of quality of life improvements, again, both for casual as well as competitive player. And it's an iterative process, right? That's why we are in early access, right? We want to know where we could be improving. We want to know what the community loves, that we could continue leaning into and enhancing. And that's this iterative process that we are taking, with very, very rapid updates being released on a very, very regular and rapid fire basis.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've seen a lot of people sort of try to throw shade at Off the Grid when it comes to like, oh, why are these things unbalanced? And it's like, hey, I mean, you look at Warzone, you look at Apex, you look at Fortnite, dude. The time that it takes for them to do any sort of balancing,
Yep.
I mean, guns will go broken for like 2 seasons before anything actually really happens. And the fact that Off the Grid is popping these updates out pretty much like, it seems like every other week, you guys are
Yep.
doing something to update the game and fix it and make it more fair for everyone. I think sometimes, especially when we're on the crypto, we feel like, hey, we have access to the team, they should be doing this a lot faster. But it's like, dude, just take a step back and look at the entire rest of the gaming space, and you realize, hey, these guys are doing a lot more than other games in that caliber are really doing for their player base. So I really want to give you guys your flowers for that.
Well, one, thank you. And two, a lot of people don't understand, and I'll gladly kind of touch on that for a second. When there's, for example, some limb that people feel is overpowered, or a weapon that people feel is overpowered, people very often will say, well, all it takes is just do a 50% damage reduction and call it a day. It should be a one line of code, and you can push that out in 15 minutes. I see how mods sometimes having fun with that and saying, hey, it's amazing. If you can get that done in 15 minutes, we have a lot of job openings, in Frankfurt. Please join us and fix it for us in 15 minutes. But all joking aside, there's multiple test environments. There's multiple, a long-term, a short-term, and mid-term. There's multiple teams working on multiple things that then kind of get bolted together and united and then tested multiple times. The process is extremely complex. And during, to get to early access, for example, we literally had the team for, I think it was a little bit over a month on lockdown, working 18 to 20 hours a day, nights, weekends, holidays, just to get that early access piece out. And sometimes obviously, when we have emergency updates and emergency patches that happen sometimes as well for urgent bugs, that's the work mode we have. So nobody that I've known, and I've been in business since 1998, that I've seen has ever worked harder than this team to get fixes out, to get updates out, to listen to the community and take that feedback into account. It will never happen as fast as people would like it to be, but to your point, right, it happens infinitely faster than any other gaming company out there, that has a product of this caliber, right? If you have a little Pong game or Atari, Space Invaders, probably easier to adjust things than on something so massive with 380 people working full time on it.
Yeah, man, I have 3,000 hours logged in Fortnite. And there have been seasons where I just didn't even want to touch the game for a whole season because it would be 60 days, 90 days before they would fix something that was like, they probably did not intend to break it. I don't think any game developer sets out to like, ooh, I'm going to introduce this thing that looks really fun that the community is going to find a way to take advantage of and break it. Like no game developer does that on purpose. But it happens, and you guys are fixing it really quickly. I've got 2 more questions for you as we close out. I know we got to wrap this. For people that maybe are just excited, maybe they're not gamers, and they are listening in from the crypto side, from the DeFi side or broader crypto, and we're trying to win them over and tell them, hey, this space is genuinely forwarding the adoption of blockchain. What should they be, or what could they be excited about that you guys are developing, pushing out, coming up with? Like in the future of Off the Grid, what do you think the crypto space is going to be excited about?
Well, the really, really exciting thing is that we will continue onboarding to our Gunz AAA Web3 gaming ecosystem more and more IP that will focus also on the game and provide massively entertaining and engaging gaming experiences, while also having very sustainable economies, which is a huge focus of ours. I think that's really, really the most exciting part, aside from, of course, early next year, our full game launching, early next year, our mainnet launching, etc. And what's your second question?
Yeah, I know there's limited info we can get from it, obviously, but I'm excited. As someone from that camp, I'm excited. And my final question, I think a lot of the times we talk about like real future big things that you guys are cooking. We've talked about those. We know that you guys have got multiple modes coming out. We know that you've got story stuff coming. But I am sometimes curious about like, hey, what are you guys working on right now? What, like when you leave this conversation, it's a Friday, you go back to work next week. What is Gunzilla working on right now?
So one little piece of alpha that I will give is that we have some, I would say, Twitter melting content packs coming out for early next year, probably January, maybe February.
Nice.
But there's some stuff that will match, if not possibly exceed, the insanity that we had with our Save Democracy pack. That's what we're
dude.
Yeah. So.
Hey, last time you said we're going to melt Twitter, you succeeded.
We did.
I think a lot of people say that, and it doesn't happen. And you guys succeeded. So if you say it, I'm going to believe it.
This should be equal, if not bigger, than the last pack, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun with it. I know we're having already a lot of fun with it. They're building it, but that's literally what we're going back to next week. In addition to, of course, in very, very rapid fire succession, improving on this massive update that really released. And that's going to be kind of an ongoing process. But that's the big thing that we're cooking.
Cool. Amazing. Theo, this has been a pleasure, man. I'm so excited for the future of Off the Grid. Wherever you're listening, if you want to play right now and you haven't, I'll throw some links down there so that you can figure out where to play, whether you're on console, you're on PC. If you want to follow them, I'll put their socials down here. You should not be fading Off the Grid. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Cheers, guys. Take care.
See you next time on 100X.